Ooh, ooh, ooh. WDBFradio.com. WDBFradio.com.
Wonder who wrote the book of love? Tell me, who wrote the book of love?
Welcome to Bucks on the Bookshelf with your host, Steve the Bookman Eisenstein. Steve the Bookman Eisenstein has been involved in buying, selling, and appraisals of rare books since 1968. This show has been designed with making money for the listeners in mind. More people know the value of coins, stamps, objects of art, and collectibles they do not own than the values of the books in their home library shelves. Now, here's Steve the Bookman Eisenstein.
Who wrote the book of love?
Good morning, my fellow rare bookians, and welcome to today's live broadcast of Bucks on the Bookshelf. I'm your host, Steve the Bookman Eisenstein, and you are listening to us live on the WDBF radio networks, 24/7 radio to entertain your brain. We've been busy downsizing the warehouse the past few weeks. To date, we've sent some 3,000 books to Max Roback, commongroundfinds.com on Whatnot, to offer in his auctions at commongroundfinds.com. And again, that's on Whatnot. Everybody who listens to this show and knows me knows that I am not the swiftest on computers, okay? But I am a very good observer of the business, and maybe I can't push all the right buttons in the middle, but I definitely know how to analyze what's happening in the market. And from what I'm seeing, both in just observation and personal financial results, this Whatnot is much better than eBay. We watched Max last Sunday do 50 lots of just our books in 90 minutes. And the amazing thing, every lot sold. As the consignor, we were just thrilled with the results. We also found out the hard way that we have way more than 5,000 books in the unit, in this warehouse unit. We shipped out almost 3,000 books as of last week. And as I noted earlier, it barely made a dent in the inventory. I think we had closer to 8,000 or 9,000 books. I just didn't realize it. And it might even turn out to be more than that. In the left-hand corner of my warehouse in the back, there's six piles of milk crates that are about 8 feet high. They're taller than I am. And every one of those is loaded with ephemeral stuff and other, oddball stuff that we put in those boxes because it didn't really belong on a shelf. A lot of ephemera I'd rather have in a box than a shelf. So we really found out we had much more than we realized. And the reason I'm saying that in such detail is that there's a lot of people like me, okay, in this situation. Maybe you don't have a radio program. Maybe you've been doing books a little less time, but a long time, compared to most. You're at it 30, 40 years. And you realize it's time to downsize. And let's just say, for argument's sake, you're not a computer fan, whether you know how to do it or not. I personally always like in and out. I don't want to wait for somebody to order my books 3 weeks from now and then find out, that I saw the notice that they ordered it 3 days after it was due to be shipped, and then I got penalized. I like in and out action. So what Max offers is just that. if you're my age, if you've been in the business a long time, if you're not selling a lot, in volume, and you've got thousands of books, personally speaking, 8 or 9 thousand books for the amount of time that I've been in the field is not a lot. There are people that have tens of thousands of books, and they've been in it much less time than I have. But the one thing I'll say about ours is their quality. If I pick the book off a shelf and put it in my warehouse, the book has a potential of selling, even if it is a $15, $20 book. Those are the bread and butter books. So think about it. If you're in your 70s and you've been doing this a long time, and you don't have a plan, now's the time. Let this message sink in. It's really important. If you have heirs, you're going to leave them a mess. You're going to leave them with problems. And, if you don't do something like I'm doing and actively downsize, at least leave some notes for whoever it is. We all have had the experience of buying a collection at some estate sale or something that's what didn't happen. They just let it go. The estate sale people weren't the swiftest, and therefore a great collection, got into somebody's hands at garage sale prices. I wish that for everybody, but if you're listening to this show, I don't wish that for you. I wish you to be on the good end of the selling on that, or if you go to sales still, on the other side of that coin. So anyway, that's kind of what we've been doing. I always say I'm a public face and a private person. So I'm going to give you an update on yours truly and what the aging process is doing. I found out after going into caves, scuba diving, sensory deprivation tanks, all that stuff in my youth, that I am claustrophobic in an MRI machine. Okay. Well, they were supposed to send me to 3 different places and it didn't happen. Each one was a tube. So they came up with this, and I ask you this question. If you heard this and you didn't know what it was, would it sound like a porno movie? What they want me to go for now is called a transrectal prostate ultrasound. And I put in the title in outer space. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Do you do it in outer space? I don't know. But hopefully that will answer the question. And the other thing is the hernia. If you're young and you're in this business and you're in good shape, stay there. But realize that lifting lots of boxes of books for many years, if you're not careful about it, you can wind up with a hernia or two like I did. So, I almost remember the day that I got the second hernia back in 2018. We did the Lincoln Road. No, we did the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair one weekend. Came home, unloaded everything, reloaded the van for the Lincoln Road show that following Sunday. And when I was packing up the van on that Sunday, I felt a twinge. The rest of it is history. I went to the doctor and he said, "You have a double inguinal hernia again." So, anyway, that's the nitty gritty. Enough medicine. I'm tired of hearing medical stories. Believe me, when you get old, that's about all you hear lately. So, anyway, if you have questions, take out something to write with, take out something to write on, and copy down a couple of phone numbers. If you want to talk to us live during the show, which is Saturday from 10 to 12, the telephone number is 888 575 4394. That's 888 575 4394. If by some chance you use that number and something goes wrong, put a 1 in front of it. If by some chance you put the 1 in front of it and the number goes wrong, try it without the number, without the 1. Okay. We seem to be getting mixed results on that. On another note, this show is replayed today from 4 to 6 p.m. It is replayed tomorrow from 8 to 10 a.m. and 3 to 5 p.m. And it's also replayed Monday from 1 to 3 a.m. And the reason I'm mentioning that is twofold. One, so you can tell your friends, or if you want to hear something again, you can listen to it. Um, the other reason I'm mentioning it is if you are listening to this show during replay, but you want to contact me off air, it's very easy. 305-868-5515. That's 305-868-5515. That is a landline. So if you're going to call us, be ready to talk, not type and text. If you have questions today, we'd love to hear from you. My guest is going to be joining us shortly. He's sending his daughter off to, I guess what it is, some kind of school or camp program right now. So as soon as that's done, Eric Lemke will join us. Um, Eric is really an interesting guy. If you don't know about him, Google it. Eric Lemke, Lemkhul. He's been a frequent guest, not just on this show, but he's been a frequent guest on Porn Stars. And when they did their Porn Stars Around America tour, Eric's was featured in a couple of issues, a couple of productions of it. But his stuff, the things that he had, the things that he collects and sells, were featured in many of them. Now, Eric is one of the most multifaceted um, collector, lecturers, dealers, everything in certain areas. But some of the more fascinating ones, meteors, mineralogical, thank you, specimens, rare books and paper, firearms, artifacts from, totally ancient to, more antique than ancient, and his knowledge is phenomenal. And one of the things that we're going to open up with, and we want you to participate in this discussion, we really would love it. It's one of the few times that we're talking about things on the show that are not quite book related. I mean, there's no real, verboten is religion and political discussions. But I got to tell you, with what's going on in the world today, I think a fun discussion would be about this jewel heist. Let's hear different opinions about it. I'll tell you mine when we start talking about it. But on the other end of it, and I say this with a little bit of joking, sarcasm, whatever it might be, I'm not a sports spectator, okay? Edie makes up for that. Edie's the sports spectator in the house. So obviously, there's been a big thing going on in betting and crime and all that. This is not my original thought. I heard this on one of the newscasters the other day, and basically what he said was, you know what? With all the crime stories we have lately, it's almost appreciable to have a good mafia gambling crime story where nobody got pushed in front of a train, a Molotov cocktail wasn't thrown, all of those things. So, to the guys that lost in gambling, what do you expect when you play cards with the mob? You can't expect much more. Um, and the jewel thing, I'd love to hear different people's opinions about that. Eric, I see you're on. I hope you haven't been sitting there for a minute or so
Oh
long.
no, no,
No,
not
no,
at all.
I dash in and out of my brain while I'm monologuing. Um, Eric has joined us, so I'm going to introduce him again. And for those of you who are new or haven't heard previous episodes, um, Eric is a multifaceted talent in the antiques and collectibles industry, from meteors and minerals to dinosaur skeletons and books, paper, artifacts. Eric, we always like the audience to know what got you started. So, an abbreviated Cliff Notes version of what got you started. And let's go
Sure.
right into the jewel thievery.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, no. So like, what got me started, and I say it every time, is this was a passion that I followed since I was a kid. Like the idea that you could dig in the ground and find something just exceptionally rare or valuable, that there's could be a treasure right underneath your feet, was intoxicating. And so I studied the ground and the earth and the things that came out of it, and that's how I started. And then it branched out into not only minerals and fossils and natural specimens, but it branched into artifacts and going and discovering that sort of thing. And it was just so much fun to be a part of that. And I was able to grow it into a business where now I can buy and sell these rare artifacts and provide them to the public. And because of my connections, I've got a very good source. I got good, provenance. I've got good reputation, and so I can give people the genuine article. And actually, speaking of the jewel heist right now, one of the things, because I told you last episode that I was in a buying phase right now of the business. One of the things that I'm trying to buy is I'm actually looking to get some royal family jewels, not French though. I'm looking to get some Italian royal family jewels. Now, I don't know if I'll be able to get any because these are going at auction and the prices might be exceptionally exorbitant, but we shall see. This is going to be a fun thing how it happens. But I'll tell you, if I see some French jewels knocking around in the black market, I'll be sure to tell somebody.
Well, okay, let's take it from the top. And
Sure.
then, again, if anybody wants to join this conversation, Captain Hook, you don't have to dial in, just chime in. And anybody else, 888-575-4394. We'd love to hear from you. This is my overview on it. Whether they were top-notch professionals or not, and it seems based on they left some evidence and maybe not, it was a crime of sheer simplistic genius. Okay? What did they need? This wasn't Mission Impossible, and timing, and if somebody walked too slowly, and all these other things you might have to time and figure out if you're doing a heist that, has got multiple levels of security around it. One of your guys walked up to that floor. They know that the cases weren't, shatterproof, obviously.
Mhm.
They walk to the end, they look down, and they don't know. Maybe they don't know how thick that piece of glass is, the entry piece that they used, but it doesn't matter. Come in over prepared to cut the glass.
Yeah.
They didn't have it seemed they didn't have any problem with that.
Yeah.
And then to do the whole thing in 7 minutes, to me, it makes me think of somebody's with the rail with Vin Diesel, where they're driving all the cars and they're timing the lights and all that, and they build a mock street in a warehouse. These guys had to have rehearsed it. They had to have that ladder in a room, a warehouse where maybe they built scaffolding, to emulate going through the window. But do you disagree with that? That had to be rehearsed to do that in 7 minutes?
No, I'll tell you this. I agree with you that I think that they were pros with human error. I think that's the biggest thing I can say. They were a professional job, but it was a human error, because let's just assume that they're amateurs, like they're an amateur people. I think that what we would see, the aftermath from true amateurs, would look vastly different. I also think that this idea of a human error, that these professionals, doesn't necessarily mean perfect. Professionals can give near perfection, which I think this was near perfection. They left DNA evidence, they dropped a crown, and as far as I'm aware, that was kind of the only real screw ups that they had. They did the whole thing, and I heard that it was 8 minutes long, that they were only inside the Louvre for 4 minutes. I mean, that's an incredibly short amount of time. So I'm willing to believe that these were people who have real experience in real theft, because just from a human psychology standpoint, if you're a thief, you're not going to wake up one day and say, you know what, I think I'm going to be a thief today. I might as well start with the Louvre, the most prestigious and famous museum on earth. Like, that's just not something you would do. I will say though that the current danger, if we can say danger that's being presented, which is this thing, I can comment because of my connections with the museum world and the antiquities world. The thing that people are worried about right now is that this will embolden local thieves and of smaller museums and smaller cities and smaller towns. Because if these other thieves who exist in these other towns say, wow, look at what just happened to the Louvre, and they have a huge amount of security at the Louvre, and they were quote unquote successful in getting the items out of the building and away with them. Maybe I can do it to my little, small town museum.
We got to take a break. I want to
Sure,
come back. Small Town Museum is where we left off.
sure.
We will be back with Eric, myself, Captain Hook, and hopefully you guys after these commercials.
Duffradio.com.
Stein.
Welcome back, book lovers. We are talking with Eric Lemkuhl. If you would like to join us in the conversation about the jewel heist or anything else we're going to be talking about, Eric has a wealth of topics that we're going to go through today. The telephone number is 888-575-4394. That's 888-575-4394. So the subject that we're talking about is the jewel heist in France. And we kind of left off with you saying that the smaller museums beware.
Yes, yes. So the smaller museums, they're worried that the local thieves that are true amateurs that really haven't tried to rob a museum or something of tremendous wealth, that this will kind of inspire them to do that. That's the so a lot of the smaller museums are kind of all on edge right now. I know quite a few are trying to beef up security or trying to take extra precautions, or the staff that are currently there are just paying attention a little more carefully because they're a little concerned about this, because we had somebody pull off something that was shouldn't have been done, or shouldn't have been possible, really. Like, nobody robs the Louvre today in modern era. Nobody does that. I will say though that for everybody out there listening is that I believe 100% firmly that the thieves are going to be caught. I believe 100% is going to happen, because in this day and age where you have DNA, where people can trace you and track you so easily, where everybody's phone is listening to everybody else's phone and everybody's doing this and that, I just don't see a way where these thieves are going to get away with it forever.
Allow me to debate you on that one.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's go backwards. Security at smaller museums. Yes, they're going to tighten it, but let's go back to the Louvre.
Okay.
How did these guys come up with the idea? I mean, that's a story that if they get caught, I'd love to hear. I could see it be something like, well, we were walking through the museum one day,
Yeah.
and we saw these jewels, and 15, 20 feet away was a window. And, it's on the third floor. We'll do it just as they're opening, so everything is focused downstairs.
Yeah.
And I believe firmly in I always said if I ever got into computers, I'd be a hacker. So, I mean, the reason I'm not a criminal is because I always see myself getting caught. I'm being honest about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would never, I just wouldn't do it. And I couldn't do the time at this point in time anyway. So, whatever. But I think it could have been almost by accident. Some guy with larceny in his heart, could even be her with larceny in her heart. They're walking through the museum. They know that for some reason this glass case, could be shattered. They're walking to the end of the hallway and they look down. How hard? I mean, the plan was really no planning. It was like, hey, I see an easy way to smash this glass and get out of the building. You can't simplify it down to more common denominators than that. you
Hmm.
know so they did it. It wouldn't surprise me if it happened by accident, but what I think for sure was once that plan was on paper, they had a buyer already. Okay,
Oh yeah.
they were in go mode once they had the buyer. Now, let's talk about something else. In this, every one of I work with AIS, Appraisers International Society. You have, I'm sure, Eric, and a lot of people out there have seen what I would call a very sophisticated appraisal of, let's say, a 7 carat flawless D diamond. I mean, when
Hmm.
you look at that report and you don't know what you're looking at, the heading is covered up. You don't know if you're talking about rocket science,
Yeah.
algebra, chemistry, all of the above. I mean, it's really a technical, description. I can't imagine, and tell me if I'm wrong. You of all people would be able to tell me I'm wrong on this. Every one of those stones, from the baguettes to the major stones, has been gemologically appraised.
Oh yeah.
Were
Oh yeah.
they laser marked? Okay. And
Yeah.
then let's talk about the meat. I don't think there's that much gold and silver and all that gold, platinum, whatever. I don't
Mhm.
think there's that much gold to melt down. I mean, they lost the crown. That would have been the most, and treasure gold is always worth more than scrap gold,
Yeah.
you
Oh
know.
yeah.
And then the other thing, okay, like if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Those the sapphires, rubies are red, sapphires are blue.
Mhm.
Okay, those sapphires, it wouldn't surprise me if there was an etching somewhere, in the girdle of it.
Yeah.
Um, if a gemologist looked at that stone, he or she would be able to tell when it was cut, how it was cut, maybe what country and the style it was cut in, you know. So it's not like, if all of a sudden large chunks of gorgeous recleaved rubies,
Mhm.
come out. Well, not rubies, sapphires
Mhm.
come out on the market, that people might get suspicious because they can tell if some of the original cleave marks and things like that is still there. They should be able to tell the age of the stone, or
Yes.
well, not the age of the stone so much as when it was cut.
Yes. Yep.
So what does that do?
Well, so like you're I think that this is a really interesting topic that you've touched on, and what it boils down to is what are they going to do with the gems afterwards? And for me, that question really starts with, well, why were they stolen? Like I'm a fan of the theory that this was more of a professional hit, that this was might have been an indication of an organized crime, something like that, which means that they have a boss that they are doing things for, that they
Uh-huh.
then, after this was all done, they went and reported to somebody else who is going to be doing this. If that's true, it really lends to the idea that these gems might be recovered whole and intact down the road, because this is somebody who might be able to take advantage of the wealth, because that's what we're really talking about, is how much wealth is really being talked about here. So when we're talking about like the theft of a painting, well, the painting doesn't really have any intrinsic value. The painting is valuable, but the reason it's valuable is because it is the painting. Whereas these jewels and gems, they do have intrinsic value. If you take a
Hmm.
diamond, you can cut it up, you can alter it, and it'll still be valuable. You can't do that with a painting. You can't cut up a painting and have it still be valuable.
What's
So
surpri
yeah, go ahead.
what surprised me is the valuation they gave for what the stones would be worth if they're recut, 100 million. I
Yeah,
would imagine if that necklace with the sapphires and diamonds went up at auction, it would probably go for tens of millions of dollars
oh yeah,
alone, if not 100 million.
oh yeah.
So that leads me to an obscure thought that I have had for years, decades, about stolen art. Okay.
Yeah.
When a stolen masterpiece is off the market, everybody knows you're not going to sell it publicly. It's
No,
impossible.
no.
So I have a theory because I've met a lot of sick rich people in my hotel years. Okay. I think there's the potential outside the outside box and maybe a little further away than that, that this is what happens to them at the end. You got some. multi-billionaire, gazillionaire weirdo that's
Mhm.
going to hang him on the wall next to his stolen Mona Lisa. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
And
yep.
he's just going to sit in his bedroom and
Yeah, yeah.
look at it.
Yep.
I mean, I can't picture that, but I can picture that. So,
Yep.
you know, it's just amazing. It's amazing. I have to say that if nobody gets hurt, this is my heart and mind. Maybe I'm a little twisted. I respect a good caper where nobody got hurt. I mean, history
Mhm.
got damaged, yeah,
Yeah,
but on the other side of it, this was sheer criminal genius. I mean,
yeah,
to a degree,
yeah.
stupidity is everywhere.
Mhm.
So anyway, I think we beat that to death. Want to go try the Smithsonian next week?
Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say my next follow-up question is, man, you seem real intrigued about this. I see a little glitter or something behind you. Do you have anything to do with this
No,
heist that's happening? Like,
nah, nah. I'm not going to say it this way. I mean, I'll say it this way. The reason I've never done anything is because I always see myself getting caught. Not that I'm looking. I mean, I'm talking about my youth.
yeah.
Um, it. I respect it. I mean, I might sound dumb, but when I went through my studying organized crime fascination that we all went through at one time or another, I came up with this slogan. Even Al Capone had friends,
Mhm.
So it's interesting. It's fascinating. I mean, what's going to happen? I'll say a socially redeeming factor. I hope they get caught for history. Okay.
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
history should not be destroyed. And who doesn't like going into a museum and looking at, those jewels, Sutcliffe and Sandgorsky jeweled bindings on books, things like that.
Mhm.
It's unfortunate for history what has happened. Will it I respect your thought about it could trigger copycats. Something like this usually does. So I guess, maybe every museum in the country right now that has glass might want to change,
Yeah.
their glass to 4-inch plexiglass or something like that. You know,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
ain't Wakanda.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I think we did a good job on that one. I don't have much to say about the sports betting, but if you got a thought on that, go for it. I just think that's the kind of crime we need to hear more of instead of the atrocities that we're hearing of
Yeah.
today.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
it's romantic in a way, and I think that the reason that
good word.
people go see those crime movies, and the reason that they make huge blockbuster movies that make hundreds of millions of dollars on it is because deep down, I think that all of us are kind of enchanted and intoxicated by this idea of the rush. Okay, here's your mission. You're going to go into this building and do this and do that, and it's exciting and it's different, and I think that that is why it's appealing to so many people. And then good people and human decency takes over and says, well, but you're not really going to go do anything. And of course,
But it's such a
99%
good plan. I want to. No.
exactly. It's like it'll be so great. It'd be great. But 99% of the people are going to say, it's fun to think about and it's fun to watch on TV or to go see a movie about it or read a book about it, but to really do it in real life, they can't, bring themselves to that. There are
Yeah.
the 1% who will, but as far as we're concerned, we get to now kind of sit in quote unquote the good seats and look back and say, how's this all going to unfold? What's going to happen next? Who's going to do the next crazy thing or whatever?
The big stones I understand, but what do they do with the smaller stones? What do they do? Make a ring and stick a stone in it? I mean, what would they do? When you see some of these Art Deco pieces, that are
Mm-hmm.
platinum and gems, and all that. if you took the gems out of that piece, those, especially the baguette size,
Mhm.
they're not really all that saleable. I mean,
No.
go into any pawn shop today and they're melting the gold, and they say, "Do you want your stones?" Nah, they're not worth it, and they wind
Yeah.
up with buckets of them.
Yeah.
But with
Yeah.
baguette diamonds, there's nothing wrong with a couple of bottles of that.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Yeah, we both are. Let's see how this unfolds. The DNA, let's see where they go with it. I don't think we're going to hear much about the investigation until they, either have somebody or time buried the story.
Oh yeah. Well, they're. I think that they're going to keep this as quiet for as long as possible. The police and the organizations, because it's such a hot topic right now, and everything, and it's
Look,
such a hugely important culturally, and I mean, this is the most famous museum in the world. So there's going to be a lot of people who are giving them misinformation. And I believe that the way that they're really going to get caught is a combination of DNA evidence, police work, but this third magical ingredient I think they'll need is that the investigators are going to need a tip from somebody inside. They're going to have to go to somebody and say, they're going to let loose, they're going to let slip at some point. Let's just hypothetically say that, Steve, you did steal the gems, right? Well,
okay.
we got the holidays coming right around the corner. We're going to have Thanksgiving and Christmas and all this stuff, and you're going to see friends and family and stuff like that. And if you pulled off one of the largest, heists of recent memory of that you got away with it, you have these jewels sitting in a shoebox in your basement, you might let slip to a friend or a family member or something that, hey, I did this. This is pretty cool, right? And I think that then that's somebody, maybe you can trust them. Maybe they might tip police off, but I think it's going to be a tip that's going to be crack it up.
Well, we got a couple of seconds to float here.
Sure, no, please, please.
I can agree with you. We go because we got to hit a break.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree with you on that theory. I don't think there's. I really believe that this is the thieves and the buyer. They're not looking for other buyers, where the
Yeah.
word's going to get out. Well, Louis got 12 of these,
Mm.
that kind of stuff. I think this is a very tight group, and loose lips sink ships. I think they might practice that.
Steve, can
Uh,
I jump in here for a
yeah, oh,
second?
please. You control the
Yeah.
float.
Well,
We
there's
are
one
all.
thing that hasn't been thought of, and I haven't heard it said, but I have a feeling it might be Russian influence because of their and Eric could speak to this a little bit. They're intertwined with Napoleon during that period of time.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, but they might want those jewels for some reason. This could be. I mean, the way they were so brazen about it kind of shows a little bit of Russian influence to me.
And that could be it. That could be. There's a lot of cultural significance that going back and forth, and who's to
Yeah.
say that theory at this moment holds as much water as any other theory, in my opinion.
Right.
I'm going to call it brazenly simple. I mean, yes, it was brazen, but there were no, alarms, sophisticated traps. There weren't any.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, any theory is correct at this point. Do we need to get into a break?
Yeah.
We're about
Yeah.
2 minutes
Yeah.
over the
Oh
line.
no.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. All
Let's
right.
go.
Float or break, Cap. Welcome back, my fellow book and gem theft story lovers. Time will answer all those questions. Eric, one of the things before we start talking about a topic you're going to bring up for us, how can people reach you off air? I know it's Professor Encodus, but you got to spell it.
Yep. So professorencodus.com. That's professor spelled like professor. Encodus is ENCHODUS.com. You can reach me email me at Eric, ERIK, at professorencodus.com. Professor spelled like it is. Encodus, ENCHODUS.com. We also have a phone number you can call or text me, and that would be 612-804-2647. So I look forward to hearing from anybody else who's looking for that special treasure, which actually leads me right into my next topic, which before we were talking about the French gems, I'm currently in a buying phase to try to buy some things that are going to be, sellable for me and that'll appeal to the public. And I'm actually looking into getting some royal gems myself. These are legally obtained, however, and not stolen on the black market. But the topic I wanted to talk to you about to see if you could weigh in, and Captain Hook, if you want to weigh in too, I'd love it. But the next show that I'll be doing is the Oddities Expo in Minneapolis. And the Oddities Expo is different from my traditional antiques and artifacts because it's focusing more on this morbid, macabre sort of vibe of artifact or item. And I'm trying to buy things that are going to appeal to that crowd. So I want to be a little bit macabre, but I don't want to be too macabre where I'm starting to scare people off, because if I don't sell it at this show, it's not like my regular clientele would be interested in this kind of thing. So we're talking about very creepy, strange taxidermy, talking about maybe some surgical items or some old medical things. I'm not sure, but
Okay.
if you were going to appeal to the oddities person, what type of item would you want to try to provide for them?
Shrunken head.
Shrunken head. That's a good one. I gotta find some. All right, I gotta call my guy.
I got a suggestion
Sure.
as far as the gemological end of it goes.
Oh, sure.
I'll send you their info. Ellie Rosen or Bill Korst. Bill, probably either one of them. But Bill does that show in Arizona with the mineral specimens.
Oh, the Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And Ellie might be a source for some kind of royal jewelry. Ellie is the founder of Appraisers International Society. It's going into its like 40th year. I mean, so he's been a gemologist, his family is, gemologist. Same thing with Bill. They've been in the business forever. And if you're looking for medical, I know he's going to have a lot of books with great plates and oddball stuff, but Patrick Hansma is a forensic pathologist. It's also a specialist in religious and medical books, medical and religious in that order, so to speak.
Yeah.
And he would definitely know who's got the quacko wacko devices,
Oh, that'd be
that are
great.
better than the quacko wacko device. You want earlier than
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll send you their information. It's Ellie Rosen or Bill Korst at AIS. And Patrick, I think you know Patrick's name from Vintage Rare and Antique Books.
Yeah. He
Hold
sounds
on.
familiar.
That's garbage. Yeah, Patrick, just hang up on it. That's Patrick for books for sure, books, paper, things like that. But oddities, yeah, definitely. I know I sent him I don't know if he still has it. He bought this for me a couple of years ago, but it's not a fast moving item. It was about 8 or 9 original color and black and white drawings of pre-cleft palate babies,
Oh,
young
wow.
kids. I mean, it was, I can send you pictures of them. I still have pictures of them, but I don't have them anymore. I don't know if he still has them, or that would be up your alley, but it's definitely odd. It definitely would fit into a medical oddity thing.
Yeah.
So keep going about the show.
Well, I mean, so like the oddities fair, I mean, it's all about trying to find these things that are alternative. They're like the alt world is where we're talking about. And we're trying to find something that's different. And I'm thinking back to all the times in my past where I could have bought something and didn't. And the biggest story, this was actually from when I was a kid, before I even had a business at all. My father grew up in a tiny little town called Farabank, Iowa. So shout out Farabank, Iowa. If you got listeners out there, that'd be great. But Fairbank, Iowa is a tiny, tiny town in Iowa, and it's actually grown since I was a child. But I remember that one time we were there visiting my father's family, and there was a lady who had passed away, and she was, I mean, for all intents and purposes, she was a hoarder. She had just tons of stuff. So when she died, they cleared out her house, which was this tiny little like 1,000 square foot house. They brought out in these giant truck bed flats, right? Just like maybe 10 of them, completely filled with stuff. And it was all good collector stuff. And I remember trying to bid on some stuff with I was a kid, so I had like $20, right? So I'm trying to bid on my stuff. And I remember there was an item that came up, and I went to my mom and I said, Mom, please bid this for me. I really like this. Is You don't understand. This is the greatest thing, And she didn't, because she thought it was creepy. And I'll tell you what it was. What it was this guy's, we're outside, right? We're on these, this guy who's the auctioneer, he goes up, he picks up this file, and like a book, and then a pitchfork, and some more files and papers. Then he opens up one of the files, he takes out an x-ray sheet, and he holds the x-ray sheet up in the air. And this x-ray sheet, then you can see the sunlight going through it. The x-ray was the x-ray of a human head with a pitchfork that had been stuck in the guy had gotten stuck under the chin.
Wow.
And the tines were coming out the top of his head. And obviously he died. He didn't make it. But the guy says, I got to tell you something before we bid on this. This was the one and only murder in whatever such a county or whatever. So, this was the one murder that happened. And it happened, back in the 40s or 50s or something. And the premise of the murder was one farmer had some kind of, beef or altercation or something against another farmer. And so the farmer who was angry got his pitchfork, just went over to his neighbor's house and just shish kebabbed him right under the chin and got it through his head and killed him. And so the town launched this huge investigation, and the x-rays and the paperwork and everything was for like the evidence trials of like what was happening.
Wow.
And so of course I bought every financial bit of might I could muster at the age of 13. So I had like $70. And of course I didn't win, but that I always look back on that and went, oh, that.
Do you ever wonder where that is today?
I have no clue. I have looked for it.
I'm sure.
All
right.
Sure go ahead.
No. Go ahead. You look for it. Keep going.
No, I'd looked for it. I had tried to seek for. I think that it's got to be in whoever bought it's basement, and it still has it probably because it's pretty cool. And if you got the right display, I remember I was talking to you last time about when I buy things to sell, I will try and make sure that I have a display in mind for it. So that something with the right light, with the right something could have made just the coolest display. And knowing that you have the pitchfork itself and the x-rays and the documents, it was just like unbelievable. I mean, I just,
you want to know who might be able to guide you towards that is Patrick. Patrick's a forensic pathologist. And I would imagine, when they studied, maybe it wouldn't surprise me. Let me say it this way, because that was a bizarre death, in that sense. But okay, I got a hypothetical question that you made me think. You made me do it. Today at this oddity show,
yes,
would what I'm going to describe be permitted to be sold? Okay. I've told you this. I've mentioned this numerous times on the show. The weirdest thing I ever found in an estate sale was in a shed behind a house where the guy was a doctor of pediatrics and cancer in the 50s at Jackson Memorial. The woman was a cat woman. The first two 5-gallon jars that I pulled out from underneath the cabinet in the shed one was a kitten fetuses, and the other was a larger cat with littler fetuses, and the third one was actually a human baby fetus.
Wow.
Okay, in a jar. It went back to the hospital. I'm not going to go into all that, but hypothetically, let's say I found that tomorrow and I was doing the world's weirdest oddities show. Would that be permitted?
So I'm going to answer that in two ways. the way I could say it is yes and no. Human remains are a very weird topic. I will say one thing that guaranteed is going to happen is that people are going to come up and question whether or not, like, I don't think you should be, like, people are going to fight you on it, whether it's right or not. People are going to do that. But it's very bizarre when you're talking about human remains, in my experience, because if you have a human skull, typically just across the board, that's either illegal or on a good day it'd be a legally gray area. Where are you transporting it over state lines? What county restrictions or city restrictions are you facing? But if that human skull is a medical teaching aid from a university's medicine department or what have you, all of a sudden the rules change. It becomes much easier to sell as long as it's a medical specimen.
This was a medical specimen. It was in the jar. It was labeled, all of that stuff. As far as your description of what a medical specimen is, that really sounds like it was.
Yeah.
So you've never seen a fetus offered
No,
anywhere?
Steve, we got a break.
No.
Got a break. My bad. We'll be back with more fetuses after this commercial word.